Hi there, you're listening to the Total Waterpolo Podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for coming back, and I think you'll be glad that you did, because today we are joined by a really great guest, an amazing player performing at the very top of her game. It's Aussie Stinger, Bronte Halligan, and here's what's coming up next.
I remember having a chat with the coaches post-tournament and then being like, all right, like here's the stat sheet over 6 games that you played. Like go across your name and tell me how many stats you have against your name. And I was like, okay, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. And I was like, and he was like, what do you see? And I was like, well, I didn't make an impact. And he's like, exactly. Your one stat is an exclusion. Like you made 0 impact, whether good or bad, on a game. Like you didn't make any impact. And I think that was like the best lesson that I could have had at such an early age, was go into games and make a bigger impact as you can, whatever that looks like. Just do it and like go 100%.
Look, as you can hear, not only is Bronte an outstanding player and hugely passionate about water polo, but she's also incredibly thoughtful, reflective, and there's so many lessons to learn from our chat. It's definitely worth staying for. Don't forget, you get 10% off at wearwaterpolo.com for listening to this show. Enter our discount code podcast10 at the checkout. Plus, if you can spend 5 seconds giving us a rating on Spotify or a review on Apple Podcasts, or just sharing the show on any social media channels, it really helps to raise the profile of these incredible players and our beautiful sport. Let's get straight on with it then, and this is the chat with Bronte Halligan. Joining us from Zeist in the Netherlands is Bronte Halligan. Good morning, Bronte. How is everything?
Good morning, James. Yeah, it's good. Thank you so much for having me.
The pleasure is ours, and thank you for giving up your time to join us. And obviously you're in the Netherlands at the moment preparing for the World League, which is where we will start. How nice is it for you to be back with the national team?
Yeah, you know what? It's always so lovely to be back with the national team. I've spent a few years apart and away from Australia playing and training in different locations. So it's always so fun to come back and the banter's just flowing and the girls are laughing. So yeah, it's a good time when we get to rejoin and come together as a group.
Yeah, it does certainly seem like that. And I primarily get that from Tilly's Instagram stories or TikToks. The team seem like a really close-knit bunch, and you seem to all enjoy working together. Do you all share the same sort of vision and goals for the national team?
For sure. I think you couldn't really jump on board the Stingers without sharing the same vision or goals. And Tilly definitely gives the I guess everyone in the world a behind the scenes look into what the Stingers are like. We're pretty fun, easygoing people, but when it gets down to it and when the whip gets cracked, we put our heads down and really get to work.
Yeah, but now you're going to give the behind the scenes insight. This isn't necessarily juicy gossip, but you've been training and scrapping with the United States and obviously the hosts, the Netherlands. It'd be weird if they weren't there while you guys are there. But what kind of shape are those teams in, and how are you guys feeling, having met them a few times in the pool?
Yeah, look, the US and the Netherlands have 2 quite new groups, I would say, here in Zeist right now. Just it being a kind of a weird time of the year for international polo in November. It's not really heard of for us. So they've got new groups. We've got a new group just by a byproduct of a lot of people retiring from last year. So it's been a really fun week that I think everyone's been trying new stuff, to be honest with you, and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work. So it's been a very experimental week. It's been high energy. A lot of scrap matches and scrimmages, which are always fun, and so it's been a really good week.
Yeah, and you spoke about a new group there. I think the average age of the Stingers, not to make you feel maybe a little bit old, but was about 24 in Budapest from the roster, and I think this time it's even younger, which is great for the future, of course, but it obviously puts you in a position of leadership. Is that a responsibility you enjoy?
Yeah, look, I love the role I've taken on in the Stingers this cycle. I am considered old, I guess, in the Stingers now, which is mind-boggling to me because I still feel like that little 16, 17-year-old that was on the Stingers. I don't really feel any different. So It's weird that I am considered old or a grandma of the Stingers when I am only 26. So I think our average age is something like 23, and we've got 8 girls and under that are born 00 or younger. So I think that's what's exciting about the group is they're all high energy. They're all excited to be there. And when you get young girls coming through, it's almost like they have a chip on their shoulder and they have something to prove. And so they just are like hell for leather the entire time. So I don't necessarily feel old. I more feel like their age, and I'm just like hanging with all the girls. I don't think there's really like an age kind of complex within our team, but yeah, it is weird to feel experienced and have a bigger role in a leadership sense, and that's something I really enjoy. And I enjoy working with the coaches and the other girls in the leadership group, and really pushing and having a vision for where we see the Stingers going is something that's really exciting for me, and something that I really enjoy that I can have my say in what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm glad you used the word experience and not grandma, because that's not. I didn't use either of those words, but you said you're part of the vision for the future. And in Budapest, I thought the Stingers were really, really good. It was quite a positive experience, even though the results obviously weren't ideal. But for example, Hungary, you pushed really, really hard. I know you won't want to add any undue pressure to yourselves publicly, but moving forward and whatever the vision is, do you think maybe you need to get a good result here in Tenerife? Is that the next step in your progression?
Look, I think whenever you go into a competition, you're always looking for a good result. You're never not looking for a good result. And I don't think like we were overly satisfied with the result of Budapest. Yes, we were happy with moments and games and some, I guess, strategy that we pulled together. We're really happy with. So we're never satisfied in a sixth place at a world championships, and we're always pushing for something more. So I hope that we can pull out a better result in World League finals next week. Who knows if that's the case? I guess you take it game by game, minute by minute. You never think too far ahead. We've got 3 round games, and it's a different setup where you don't have a quarterfinal to fall back on. You go straight into semis. So we'll just see when we get there. But I have really high hopes for this group. I know the support staff do. I mean, it'd be stupid to say in international polo that you don't have high hopes. I think we're all competitive people and we all want to win and want to succeed. So hopefully that's the plan. And then from there we just keep building. And that's the whole point. We're not aiming to be ready next week 100% perfect playing water polo. I mean, that would be great if we could do that. But we're aiming to build and build and build and grow as a team, and hopefully bring more girls in and grow them as well. So then this sport and this squad get bigger and bigger and bigger and better. And then hopefully in a year's time, 2 years' time, even longer than that, I think is the vision that we progress to be a powerhouse in international water polo.
You've obviously been part of some really good Australian teams, and you've had some success at the World Championships a few years ago. I remember was a really good result. But how does this current group of girls compare to some of the previous teams that you've been a part of?
I think it's really hard to compare teams just because they are so different. This group is just young and energetic and excited. That's exactly how I would describe it. When I came into the Stingers, I was the youngest by 4 years, and we didn't necessarily have an older bunch, but we had like a good age, middle age bunch that were all really experienced. I think a lot of girls have been to 1, if not 2 Olympics. And that was a dumper era back in 2015, and they were, I would say, consistent, those Stingers. They were really consistent. They knew their water polo. They knew the systems really well. And so to come into a group like that, it was kind of like sink or swim. Like, you better know what we're doing or you're out, and the next one's in that we're trialing. Now, I think because we're so new and we're so fresh-faced, it's more, and the coach is new, so it's more trial and error to find out what our Stingers, kind of what our heartbeat or our personality is as the Stingers group, which is also a really fun thing to be a part of, is we get to define who we are. Also with bringing along a lot of that Stingers culture that we're really proud to represent and proud to be a part of.
That's really well put. And you said that you came into the team, you were quite a bit younger than the others. You made your debut in 2014, I think, and you were 17. What do you remember from those early days coming into, as you said, a squad of double Olympians in some cases?
Oh yeah, I remember my debut game was in China in at a World League Finals. Funnily enough, it was that those 2 weeks was like the most mind-boggling thing of ever. Like I was still in high school. I was still competing for junior national teams, and then I also was being pulled up into the senior national team. So, I mean, I thank my mum for being able to get me everywhere to training and to school and everything because she's a big part of the reason why I'm here. But those early days at World League Finals was just insane. My debut game was crazy. I think I only hit the water for a few minutes. Like I didn't play a lot, and I just kind of try to be a sponge and soak in everything that I was a part of. I remember having a chat with the coaches post tournament, and then being like, "All right, like here's the stat sheet over 6 games that you played. Like go across your name and tell me how many stats you have against your name." And I was like, "Okay." 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. And I was like, and he was like, "What do you see?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't make an impact." And he's like, "Exactly. Your one stat is an exclusion. Like you made 0 impact, whether good or bad on a game. Like you didn't make any impact." And I think that was like the best lesson that I could have had at such an early age was go into games and make a bigger impact as you can, whatever that looks like, just do it and like go 100%. And that's the lesson I took away. And that's something I've tried to carry through and in my water polo now for 10 odd years that I've been part of the Stingers now. So, yeah, I definitely remember my debut. It's something I hold really, really close and dearly to me because I learned such an important lesson.
But that's always easier maybe to say than to actually do. But what advice would you give in practice, whether it would be when it comes to training or like a mindset in game, or speaking to teammates or your coaches about technical or tactical points?
Look, I think it's easier to make an impact in training than it is in a game, more so that you're in an environment where mistakes are welcomed and challenged, not so much in a game where, yes, mistakes are welcomed if you're 100% going to do something or try to achieve something and there's a vision there, fine. But in training, you can experiment a lot more. And I would say do that. Go out and try and make a pass that maybe you wouldn't necessarily do, or take a shot that maybe you wouldn't do, because you're not going to learn or grow as an athlete without failing. That failure is a part of the process and it should be welcomed. It shouldn't be something to be scared or afraid of. And the only way you then get to make impacts within games or within training sessions is actually trying something. So that would probably be my best piece of advice, is just go out and attempt something and do it wholeheartedly with 100% content and commitment, and then you can learn and see what happens from there.
Yeah, that's really stellar advice, and that takes a lot of courage sometimes for people always scared to fail. You spoke, you said that you might not be here if it wasn't for your mum, but obviously your dad. For those that don't know, and I'm sure you're sick and tired of it being brought up, but lots of people won't know his background. Almost like a legendary Kiwi rugby league and rugby union player. If you're talking about high performance, maybe one of the best kickers of all time. I know maybe you were quite young when he'd stopped playing, but what kind of influence does an elite athlete like that, not just as a father, but like nowadays? I'm sure you speak to him about things, even though there's maybe not so many transferable skills in terms of water polo and rugby. So what kind of influence does a role model like that have on you as a developing athlete, as that 17-year-old going to the World League?
Look, I think it kept me really grounded and really really kind of, in a sense that I saw my dad as just my dad. He wasn't this superhero. He wasn't an elite athlete, a professional athlete. He just was dad. Daryl Halligan, the dad to me. So he taught me how to like think, act, breathe, feel as a regular human being. I saw his athletic ability and his athleticism and his coaching and all that as just his job. Like that's what he did for a living. Kind of like when you're a little kid and you're like, wait, not everyone's parents are athletes. Like, is that only me? You know, that kind of moment of realization never really happened to me because I just saw him as dad. I didn't really care what he did. In saying that, I think dad's a better walk the walk than a talk the talk. He never we did, but we never had those big chats of like, here's a piece of advice I want you to take on. It was more, okay, this is how I act and this is how I would like you guys to follow me in your lives, if whether that's you're in sport or not in sport, in just general life. And I think people always want like a juicy one liner or juicy like piece of information that athletes aren't given the keys to the kingdom by whoever's up there. Athletes aren't given the secret to life. You know, we just see, well, me personally, I just see my life as my job, which is women's water polo. And I see that I'm really fortunate and lucky that I get to go compete every day, day in, day out, and do something that I love. And I think that's what my dad taught me, is just do what you love, do what you're passionate about. And if you put 100% of yourself and your heart into that and you make sacrifices to make sure that happens, then you're gonna go far and you're gonna, you know, continue to succeed. Yes, there was other bits and pieces in there, but the main thing was he just actually emulated the type of person I want to be, which is do the right things in the right moment, make sure you do them to the best of your ability, make sure you're making the right choices and the right sacrifices to get there.
Yeah, I mean that's a great answer. I mean, I feel a little bit inspired having listened to that. Okay, we'll talk about something maybe a little bit different. From the highs of as a 17-year-old being in high school, returning home with the Aussie Stingers cap and all the rest of it, and still playing for the junior national teams. You had your eyes on the Olympic Games in 2016, and I understand that at the time that you were considering going to university in America, which you ultimately did, but you postponed that decision because Australia's not that close, and you have to train together and you have to stay in the country. Obviously, in the end, you didn't go, which is a huge disappointment for you, I'm sure, and maybe a setback in some ways, and maybe you were angry and having sacrificed so much. So, what emotions were you feeling at that time with that disappointment, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, look, Rio was a really good lesson learned for me. I had never missed out on a team ever in my life, whether that be water polo or any other sport that I played growing up, and I did every sport under the sun. So yeah, it was the first team I had never made. It was a good lesson in kind of overcoming adversity, and I was obviously, I don't know if angry is the right word. I wouldn't really call myself an angry person. I'm not really. I don't really get too angry at things, but I definitely was disappointed. I think more confused than anything because I felt I had probably had in that moment in time done everything I could to make it, which I had. You don't go into a pre-Olympic selection not giving your all. So I felt I felt confused and kind of almost I wouldn't say disheartened, but a little like, oh, like I wish I could have been there. But I did. I got to surround myself with some great friends and all my family, of course, and pick myself up and learn the really important lesson, which Dad helped me get to, is kind of like the coolest thing about having an athletic dad. And I think this is one of a really special moment between him and I as an athlete and a ex-athlete is the post phone call saying you didn't make Rio. Dad took me down to the beach. I live on the northern beaches in Sydney, and so we went down to the beach. It was middle of winter, absolutely freezing. I'm obviously hysterically crying, really disappointed. And he made me jump in the ocean. It was like really cold, and that first kind of initial impact of the ocean when it's winter is it kind of knocks your breath out of you a little bit usually. And this moment in time, instead of knocking the breath out of me, it kind of put the breath back into me and kept me like, oh, you're in the moment. You're actually here. You're on Manly Beach. You're with your dad. You can breathe. You are fine. And then we sat down on the beach and Dad told me a story of when he missed out on a World Cup with the All Blacks that kind of changed the trajectory of his life. He moved then into rugby league and he made a name for himself in rugby league. So he kind of taught me the lesson that sport is competitive. There's always going to be a winner. There's always going to be a loser. And there's always going to be someone that gets cut and someone that gets selected. And that's why we love sport. Like, we wouldn't like sport if everyone can win. Like, that is not just sport, but that's life too. Like, you have winners and losers, and sometimes you don't get the job you're going for. You miss out on something, and that's okay. Like, it's totally okay to fail and not get there, because you'll learn a lot more about yourself. And then coming back to me missing out on the first ever team I've missed out on, it's arguably the biggest team you're ever going to try and make, and I miss out on it. How do I go about that as a young, I think I was 18, 19 at the time. How do I go about that as a young girl trying to navigate my way through the world? Well, I went, okay, let's learn from this experience. Let's not take away from it. And I had the opportunity. I got asked if I wanted or didn't want to travel with the team prior to Rio for about 3 weeks to a month to help them train. And then when they flew to the Olympics, I would fly back home. And I was like, you know what? Hell yeah, let me get on that trip. Let me learn what an Olympic prep looks like. Like, that is the perfect opportunity. Not everyone gets that opportunity to learn what an Olympic prep looks like. Everyone just kind of is in their first Olympics thrown into it and said, let's train, let's do this, let's go hard. But instead I was, okay, let's learn about an Olympic prep without the real pressure of there being an Olympics at the end of the Olympic prep. Which was a cool experience. So I learned a lot about how to bounce back and how to overcome disappointment and how special sport is in that competitive spirit. So people often ask me, would you change? Like, if you could go back in time, the classic question, would you change the outcome? I mean, of course I would have loved to have gone, don't get me wrong. Like, it'd be so cool to have gone to Rio. But I learned so much about myself that I don't think I necessarily would have got those lessons in another way.
Incredibly insightful, and it's a great story. And it's interesting there that your dad took you, and almost the experience that he had in his own career. He took you down to the beach, threw you in the water, maybe against your will, and you talk about being revitalized, and then the growth mindset after of actually I'm gonna go to this training camp, whether I'm going to Rio or not. But not everyone will have that kind of insight and that kind of leader in their life, or the experience, and that's not their fault, of course. In fact, we have a question, and really apologies to the person that sent it in. There's someone from Australia. I'll try and find their name later, but they asked kind of advice after not making a state team, or not making an age group team, and this is basically the same thing on different scale. But you didn't make an Olympic team. Kids all the time are told they're not good enough to make certain teams. So if they don't have the leader in their life that you had, what if you could maybe a few things? You said there's not one golden rule, but if you could be that leader for them, what advice would you give them?
I honestly would just say, and it's so simple, but keep breathing, keep going. I missed out on my first ever big team, and in the moment when I was 14, the biggest team I could have made was a state team. So it's not saying that no one's not one team is greater than the other. It's like your moment, and that's your life, and that's kind of what's so special about it, is whatever is in that moment, that's the biggest to you, that is so important. And if you miss out, it's okay. It's completely okay. Just keep breathing, keep putting one foot in front of the other. Opportunities, new doors always open. One door closes, another door opens. And I know that's really cheesy and corny, but it is the truth. Rio door was closed for me, and UCLA door was open, and I got to go experience a college experience. One of my best mates, she missed out on our junior Australian team back in 2014. She didn't get selected. She was the first reserve. Someone pulled out. She then got put in the team, and now she's in the Stingers. So, like, there's everyone's pathway through athletic careers looks completely different. My best friend, she waited until she 21, 22, and then she was a full part of the Stingers. Me, I was a part of the Stingers when I was 17. We have completely different lifespans of our athletic career, but we all end up in the same place, or you try to end up in the same place. So don't sweat. And it's really easier to say, like, don't sweat the small stuff, but it's okay. It's really the best thing to do is actually be disappointed, because then you know you care, right? And then if you care, okay, well, let's see, and let's go to your coach for advice, go to whoever that is for advice, and say, okay, well, what can I do next time to put myself in a better position to potentially make the team? Because that's all we're trying to do, is potentially make the team every time. You're not in it till you're in it. So yeah, go and find those people that can help you reach the next level of putting yourself in a position to make the team.
Perfect. And you said the door opened for UCLA. I don't need to ask the question because we got an absolute baller in Maddie Musselman, who wrote in asking what was it like playing at UCLA, and what was it like when you eventually did go and do what you were something you were set on for a few years. What was it like?
Yeah, so I found out about the college experience through another friend who was a bit older than me. She went to Hawaii, and that was the first moment I was like, oh, I could go to college for water polo. How exciting. And so I talked to a few coaches when I was in year 12, but I graduated in 2014 from high school and thought, it's probably not the time, and chatted to the head coach at the time, Dumper, and we thought it's probably not the time for me to go to college, being that the Olympics is a year and a half away. He would have rathered me had stayed in Sydney and trained. So I waited 2 years, and I went when I was 20 to UCLA. And it was the best experience. And every young girl coming through water polo that messages me or asks me, and men as well, oh, what was college like? I'm like, if you have the opportunity to go to college, go. I mean, I don't know what university is like in Australia. I don't know that life. I just know my life, which is I did college, and it was the best experience. They really nurture you as an athlete, but also a student. And that's kind of what I loved, is that I got an opportunity to really grow as an athlete and find my feet in water polo and learn a new system of water polo, which is the American system, and play with Olympic gold medalists. They came fresh off a Rio gold medal. I got Rachel Fatal and Maddie Musselman in the water with me, also Cody Hill and Alice William, who were integral parts of that US water polo team in 2016. And so to have girls like that around you day in, day out training, you just learn so much your first year, first time living out of home, a 15-hour flight away from home. It's a really cool experience. And then you get the flip side of, you've got all these academic counselors and professors that care about your sport, but also care that you're studying. And so it's a really cool sport life balance that you get to lean on a lot of other people for support that I don't necessarily think you get in your entire life span as an athlete, but you definitely get that at college. So I was really fortunate, and I'm so proud to be a Bruin. We're just here in Zeist, and we've got 4 of us that are all Bruins, and we're 5 actually, including Adam. So we're all so, like, it's nice when you see other Bruins and you come together and you like give each other a hug, and you haven't seen each other in a year, and you're just chatting, and then you start reminiscing about college and all the fun stories. And so, yeah, I couldn't be more thankful for my time at UCLA, and it really was the best experience.
Yeah, it sounds like it, and maybe it's difficult to judge because you almost definitely would have improved anyway. But do you think going to America was really the best thing for you in terms of developing your game? I'm not sure if the option was there, but maybe if it was, you could have gone to Europe, maybe, or staying in Australia, maybe not so much. But Do you think that was the best option for you from a water polo point of view? Obviously, the academics is not really disputed, but from a water polo point of view?
I think so. I think, I mean, I don't really know what was on the other side of the door. If I stayed in Australia or Europe, I don't know if I would be here, wouldn't be here, would be better, would be, I can't tell you, but I think I learned a lot about just a really important lesson in kind of the attacking style of play. Americans are such a powerhouse when it comes to attacking and executing. And I mean, having muscles on the other side of the pool to you for 3 years is like just a lesson in itself. She's such a great water polo player, and she carries herself in a way that I don't think she really understands the effect she has on everyone. And so it was really cool to kind of see her. And we, every time we scrimmaged, it would be me and her against each other anyway. So I got to learn a lot about her attacking just by defending her and by giving her passes or whatever that looked like. And so I think I learnt the importance of attack when I went to America. That was probably the main thing. And I learnt the importance about all being on the same page when it comes to tactics, because they do run, well, especially in college, they run such a tight ship on plays um, and different like after goals and extra mans and things like that. So I learned a lot about that. And Brandon Brooks and Adam Wright were two of my coaches, including Molly Cahill and Chris and Dusty and all the other assistant coaches that we had along the way that taught you really important lessons of like doing the basics, having your skills right there, um, and then also being all on the same page when it comes to a different tactic that we're running or a different scheduled play. Adam Hazel is like things written up in booklets, and that was a completely new style of water polo to me. I'd never played like that. In Australia, it's just kind of like, here's what we do, but like, let's go play true hard grit Aussie water polo that we know how to play. America's more like, okay, this is what we're doing because this is the reason we're doing it, because they're running this defense, we're doing it this way, and because they're doing this, we're doing it this way. And so it's a lot more kind of cerebral thoughts on page and on paper, which I'd never experienced. So that was a really cool lesson in American water polo.
Okay, so now it's time for your hot take on an age old debate really about um, college water polo and professional water polo in Europe. You're obviously now in Europe, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But you're on the record a few years ago saying the NC2A was the strongest league in the world when you were there, and you're probably right with the players that were in America. But how do you sit in on weigh in on the professional versus US college debate? You're talking about the very structured plays, the booklets, the finishing of the set plays, the moves and stuff. How does that compare with what you've experienced when you obviously moved to Italy?
Yeah, it's just really different. And that's the only way to describe it is, and I don't necessarily think people that don't know water polo will understand this. Maybe it's the same in other sports, I don't know. But everyone has a style of water polo that they kind of emulate and in their national teams. And then it's really true that you um, go into their system and play in their national system, like in Italy or America or Australia. And that style of water polo that they emulate as a national team usually is the same across the board for that national program. So the Italians, I mean, it's no secret, they run M zones, they play feisty water polo. It's heavy, it's fast paced. They love to counter attack. They're really smart. They're good attackers. That's Italian water polo. American water polo is like they have their systems, they run them to a T, and they are actually perfect at them. And even though you know it's coming, they're probably going to get it right. And you're like, how do I stop this? Even though you know it's coming. Whereas Australia's like, I mean, I don't know. It's easy kind of to look on the outside and kind of know what they look like. From the inside, I know that we are like true hard grit Aussie water polo. We put our heads down, we work hard, we grind teams out. And that's kind of, we counter attack hard, and that's Australian water polo. So I don't know necessarily who is the best competition. I think when that came out of my mouth, it was they had just come off the back of an Olympic gold medal, so you can't get, and there was a lot in college, so you can't get any better than that. Now in kind of that Olympic gold medal group from Rio, and now even moving forward from Tokyo, a lot of them are in Europe. And then there's the Olympic silver medalists, the Olympic bronze medalists are all in Europe. So, and I mean, that's one competition. The year after is the World Championships and the same thing. So I think any kind of chance you get to be playing with the highest level of female athletes, which is all our international girls, and have them as your teammates or your immediate opponent, that's high level water polo. And that's kind of the best place to put yourself in. So right now for me, that's in Europe. We've got so many girls I get to line up against, all the Italians and all the others. There's a Canadian and a Hungarian that are all playing in the Italian league right now, a few Australians, and we all just get to line up against each other and go hell for leather. And that's the most important thing, is to be emulating the highest level as much as you can throughout your week, because international competition is so far and few between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously you're now with Ekipe Orizzonte. You've made loads of appearances for the club there. They absolutely love you. They're Italy's most successful club, but they've also something of a European royalty with the number of Euroleagues they won. But you don't need to go into detail about why you would choose to go there. That's clear. But how did that move come about after you left college?
Yeah, so after I left college, I went back to Australia to train with the national team for Tokyo, and then COVID hit, and so I got to spend a lot of time at home. I always knew Europe was on the cards for me. I didn't know when. I actually thought I would go back to UCLA for one more year post Tokyo, and then COVID hit. So I finished out my degree online. I still got a few things to sign off, but most of it is complete. And then kind of got approached before Tokyo and said this isn't a decision I can make until after Tokyo, and I know kind of the headspace I'm in. Day one of sitting in quarantine, Australia had to quarantine after Tokyo for 14 days. Day one of sitting in quarantine, I was like, no, I think I'm gonna stay at home, be with my family, like, and just train out of Australia for the year. And then one of my assistant coaches, and who's been a lifelong coach at my institute, I called her and she was like, what are you doing? Like, why would you stay home? Like, you've just been home for the last year with COVID. Like, go experience European water polo. Like, it's amazing. You'll love it. And like within the space of an hour, I completely had flipped what my life was going to look like for 12 months. And I was like, all right, everyone on board, mum, dad, I'm leaving for Italy. And so then I messaged a club, because I talked to a few clubs, but I knew I wanted to go there. And they were like, well, you're coming in 3 weeks. I was like, okay, like 2 weeks of quarantine. And then I think I had 2 weeks at home, and then it was like off on into Europe. So it was really fast paced. And all my friends were like, what? Like, this girl is just crazy. She's lived in LA. Now she's going to Italy. So um, yeah, I think that was just bizarre that I kind of flipped my life. And it was so kind of not impulsive, but it felt impulsive in the moment, just because it was so like 180 in the space of an hour. But I love Ekipe. I love the team there, Martina and Tanya and everyone else involved. They're just the best humans, and they're like my family now. And that's something that's really important to me, is finding my people when I go away, because Australia is so far away. So it's like you get a second family, which is yeah, really cool.
You strike me as someone that you really like Australia. Obviously, your family there. I don't know what your coach's expectations are for the next Olympic cycle. Whether you might have to return home, but kind of linked to that, does it give you a bit of regret in your mind that players like yourself have to now go abroad and to play against these top players, and that you can't really stay not professionally anyway in Australia? Does it feel you regret that infrastructure isn't at home down under?
I don't necessarily think you can't be professional down in Australia. I think that would be kind of remiss to say that, because there are a lot of girls that are doing it from home. Take our captain right now, Zoe Arancini. She's training from home, 100% doing the exact same amount of work that we're doing in Australia, and working and loving her life there. And Australia is an end goal for me. I mean, I see myself ending there, if not ending my international career there. I think my last few years of playing will probably maybe end up in Australia. I mean, who's to say? I don't know, but it would be really cool to see more international players get down there and play a season there. And we see, the likes of Cami Craig, Rachel Fatal. You've got a few good ones right now. They've all gone there and played a season, if not more. So I don't think it's not professional. I think that we have a long way to go in emulating what European clubs do say in a professional sense, because we are still semi-professional. A lot of girls work or go to school or university whilst they're playing in Australia. I think that's more good sense than anything else, because athletic careers can end in a second and you need a fallback plan. So I think it's great that we get an opportunity to live our lives. We get an opportunity to work, study, but also play. So I think we're coming along, and we've got the systems with the clubs now and the institute, and a big part of that is the high performance at Waterpolo Australia. And I think we're starting to get into a rhythm where we're introducing new opportunities that will hopefully create and bring in more players, and then we can create a stronger, fitter, faster league. So I don't necessarily think I left Australia because it wasn't high quality water polo. That's not what I did. I went to Italy because it's just a new opportunity, and a new opportunity for me to learn a different style of water polo.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yeah, and maybe I should correct myself and say professional in the financial sense rather than the level. The quality is obviously not disputed. But
Yeah.
okay, we're going to take a break now, and we will come back in part 2 with some questions that people have sent in on social media.
Too easy. Can't wait.
Okay, welcome back to the Total Waterpolo Podcast. This is part 2 with Bronte Halligan. Bronte, this is the part where we ask you questions that people have sent in on social media. And we start off all of our part 2 sections with asking our guests to give their total 7. So your top 7 players: goalkeeper, centre forward, centre back, 2 wingers, and 2 players on the top. They can be players you've played with or against, or however you want to pick them. I can see by your face that you're getting stressed about this, but
I know I'm definitely just thinking about it. But we can jump right into it. I'm just gonna go current players, kind of world championships, because then otherwise, if we go down the rabbit hole of going
we could be here for hours.
alumni, we could be here for ages. So current playing. I think currently right now our goalkeeper is the best in the world, Gabby Palm. She's having a cracker, and she's great young goalie, and she's coming through really well. Centers, I probably would say Rebecca Parks is up there at being one of the best centers in the world right now. Centre backs, I'm probably going to actually throw a spanner and say Garcia from Spain. I know she's kind of more a centre, but her centre back work is great, and Spain utilised that really well.
Interesting.
Yeah, left drivers. It's a really hard one because I play there, so I don't really necessarily think about too many of them right now. I would put Rachel Fatal in there as one of the best left drivers in the world. She's great. I do really like Van der Walle from Hungary. She's got a great vision of the ball, and she's really, really fast.
And now you're going to be playing against her a lot more often.
Yeah, definitely. And then right drivers, I probably would say Muscles is up there. I mean, she always has been, and she's great. And then who are we putting down on that right wing? Maybe someone like Arnie Espar. She plays well over that side. She's really great. Yeah. So that's probably my total 7.
Yeah, it's a good total 7. Yeah, some interesting position changes, but still, it's a good 7. Okay.
That's just for like one attack and one defense.
Of course, yeah. A 1 minute game. Okay.
Yeah.
We've got a question here from Federico Longas, who asks, "Who is your favourite player?" Now, that doesn't have to be from the total 7 that you've just picked, or it can we can change that question to being a player that you looked up to when you were younger, or however you want to answer that question.
Okay, my favorite, like one of my all-time favorite players that I looked up to when I was younger. I also was fortunate to play with her. Glenn Cora Ralph, Glenn McGee. She ended her playing career. She was a same as me, a right-hander on the left-hander's side. Amazing legs, really good vision, really a huge threat as an attacker on that side. I learnt a lot from her. I think it was my first 2 years at the Stingers. I got to play with her, and my role was really when Glad needs a rest. Bronte, you're in there for 1 to 2 minutes, giving her a bit of respite. So yeah, she was a phenomenal player and someone I really look to emulate in my career.
Yeah, for sure. And I would just say on that, obviously, the terminology is different. I mean, I would say the right side, but you're a right-hander, and really, I can't really think of anyone else more technically secure in that role than you. But lots of right-handers don't want to go on that side, and you obviously spend a lot of time there. What advice would you give to people that, lots of coaches just put the person that they trust the most that side. What advice would you give to players who end up getting pushed on that side that maybe that they don't want to? How can they improve?
It's just absolutely the best side ever. I love it. People are like, "Oh, come play on the." I'm like, "No, like these are my positions, and I love them." Um, it's fun. You get to defend like the best right hand, arguably the best shooters in the world. You get to defend them, and that's such an important role. And so I think that's actually why I got put on there, is I have such a defensive brain. I played a little Australian, also a English sport back home called netball, which not a lot of water polo people would know. And I played a defensive role in netball. So defense has always kind of been in my blood and in my system. And so that's why I kind of got put on that side, is because I love to defend and I can understand it. So I got to go defend the best right handers in the world. And then my attacking kind of came along and is still coming along as we go. So I would just say go out. You've got to have pretty good vision as a right hander on that side of the pool, being able to feed people the ball. But you get to make a lot of the decisions in the water because you are ball carrying a lot, and you get to decide kind of who you want to finish off the play or where the ball should go or what should happen. So it is a really important role and it's fun. Yeah, I wouldn't change it. I love playing there.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like it. And you said that you're still developing your attacking play. I mean, people see your attack as being kind of your forte, but really the facet of your game that was strongest, certainly when you went to college and after, was your defensive play. So, is it something you're actively trying to work on at the moment?
Well, I just think genuinely, like if I didn't have anything to learn or take away from the sport, I'd probably retire. I'm not satisfied with where I am in my playing yet. Hopefully, I keep improving, and that's only something that I can try to do every day. So, I don't think anything is perfect in my game, and I'm always trying to push the limits and push the kind of the glass ceiling. And I think we see that with a lot of international players. Is that's all we're trying to do, is just keep improving and hopefully keep loving the sport while we do it. So yeah, my attack. I think I have a long way to come in attack, and also defensively. I make mistakes all the time, so there's a lot of things I can improve. Yeah.
Okay, okay. The next question we have is from JK 18701, and they ask, "What is the favorite pool you've ever played in?" I think I might know this. I think I could take a guess where this is, but
Yeah. Oh, there's so many, and I love. I think it's just a part of being a part of a club team is you end up loving your home pool.
yeah,
So I love UCLA and I love Ekipe and Sicily and I love a few pools in Sydney. But my favourite international pool is Margaret Island, Budapest, 100,000%. It's just the atmosphere. I've been lucky to have 2 World Championships there now, and a few Test series here and there. But it's it's an outdoor pool. Love me an outdoor pool. Two, it's on an island that's literally known around the world as Waterpolo Island. Like it can't get any better than that. And the Hungarian fans are just nuts. And they're so cool and they love the sport. And yeah, nothing gets better than Margaret Island.
yeah. I suspected it was that one. I remember at the World Championships speaking to you after the game, and it was like seeing like a kid in a candy shop, like looking like you were like, "It's amazing! Look at the crowd! It's just we love doing this. This is just the best thing ever." And of course,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't not love Margaret Island.
Yeah.
Okay. San_03WP asks, is there a story behind your number 4? Is there?
Oh, I thought this question might crop up. I've always been the youngest in teams, so always just been handed like the last cap number. I think when I first came into the Stingers, I was like 11 or 5 or something. I played like 3 and 7 growing up. I went to college and got to play 25, which is pretty cool. So I've jumped around in cap numbers. I'm not superstitious where I have to have a number. I think I just learned that from being the youngest. But when I got the opportunity to pick my number in the Stingers, which was at the start of last cycle, so after Rio, I didn't really know what number I wanted, but there was maybe a handful left, maybe about 7 or 8 numbers left. It was my turn to pick. And the player who came before me, Holly, she's like an older sister to me. We got on really well. She was like a second mum on tour. She played cap number 4. And then my mum's favourite number is 4. I'm also one of 4, so I have 3 siblings. So kind of all that combined, I was just like, why not play cap number 4 for the Stingers? But I'm not 4 at Orizzonte. I wasn't 4 at UCLA. Yeah, I think I don't really care what cap number I play. I just like to play.
Yeah. So there isn't really a story, but there sort of is a little bit of relevance to you.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay, we've got a question here that could honestly take hours. You could write like a thesis on it, but Magna Polo asks, how can Australia improve the youth development even more than it is right now? Is there like a short answer to that question?
The short answer is exposure to higher levels of water polo. Whether that be through like film footage, travel, bringing people in, but just exposure to different styles and high levels of water polo. I think Australia has a long way to come in their basics and getting like their skills right. If we can really nail that in our juniors, then there's no telling where we will go. So watching what international and European and American clubs do with their skills and their basics, and then emulating that with your club back home. I go back to my club that I started at, Sydney Northern Beaches Breakers, a lot when I'm home and help coach. And I'm always telling the coaches, let's work on their skills. Let's get like their passing right, their body position in the water. If you get all that right, then it's easier when you go up the rank, and you can then just learn tactics and other parts of the game.
Okay, exposure, good. We have a question here from, I don't know if I'm saying this name, but Pepe Tropia on Instagram. Do you know this person?
Yeah, it's a boyfriend of a friend. Yeah.
Boyfriend of a friend. What is your relationship like with Martina Micheli? Now, a legendary player, really, certainly of Italian water polo, gold medalist, I think. I think she won a few world championships and European championships. How is she to have as a coach, and obviously, how is your relationship?
I adore Martina. She is so awesome to be coached by, just because she is so passionate and energetic and loves what she does. She is 120% involved in everything that she does when she coaches. So it can be really full on and can be overwhelming at times. And sometimes as players, we all laugh. We're like, oh, Martina, like, come on, like, just cut the slack. But she doesn't let you give up, and she doesn't let you let up at all, ever. And that's what I think I love about her the most. And she's just, like you said, she has an absolute rap sheet on her as a player and now as a coach. And she knows her sport so well. So to be coached by her and to learn really important lessons from her. Obviously, there's a language barrier. She doesn't speak English. I speak parcel tongue in Italian, like absolute pigeon Italian. So it can be a difficult time to communicate with her. But I mean, I think she likes me. I think she loves me. I love her. She's the best. So yeah, she's great.
The relationship is good. Actually, on the subject of speaking Italian, we have a question from Anna Milicevic, who is a player that's just joined Briz in Italy, and she asked, "How long did it take you to learn Italian?" By the sounds of it, not yet, but
Yeah, I'm still learning. I was 9 months there. I got to live with Julia Emilo, and so she was like my mouth all last season.
she's
My
great at
eyes,
English. She's really good and helpful,
she was
probably.
amazing. So she helped me learn a lot. I also had a beautiful teacher who helped me learn a lot. I'm still learning. I can understand pretty much close to everything now. Like people will speak, and I can sit there and listen to the conversation and understand it. But then the brain to mouth connection is a lot slower to actually speak it. Languages has not been something I've ever been really good at. So I'm trying my hardest. I would love to become fluent, but it's still a work in progress. So that's what we're going on, like month 12, a year, say, and I'm still not probably where I would like to be.
We've got a question here from someone you'll know again, Marguerite King, um, a former Olympian, of course. What qualities or values do you look for in optimal support staff? It's quite an interesting one. We don't. This is not normally a question we end up asking our guests, but we do get a fair few coaches at a lower level, maybe, um, that listen to this. So, for you as a high performer and just as a basic level a player, what sort of things and qualities and features are you looking for someone that involves themselves in and around the squad?
Yeah, so for a bit of context, Marcus is our physio that comes away with us, and we absolutely adore her and love her. Um, so I love that she's asked this question. She probably didn't want to ask who's your favorite physio, but this is a really interesting question. I've never been asked it. So um, I think the first thing is like friendship, and that sounds so random, but um, the ability for one of your sports staff to be able to read your body language or read kind of you or what's going on without you even explicitly telling them is a really important trait to have when they see that you're really tired, you're really stressed, or you're in a good mood, or whatever that is, being able to read that and give you what you need in that moment without you asking for it is something that I really, really appreciate and I think is undervalued. Some support staff do it so well where you could walk into a physio room or to a gym and just be so you maybe don't even know that you're that way, and you walk in, you're so tired or exhausted or overwhelmed, and they know just to like in that moment, all right, Bronte, like they'll tell you a joke or make you laugh, or like, all right, Bronte, like we're just gonna do like a yoga session today instead of lifting because you're just like you're drained. So I think kind of, and I don't know if it's necessarily called friendship, but I would call that friendship, like that kind of high level support that you just don't even need to speak. And then the other things I would just say is professionalism. You want them to be on their A game all the time, whether that's in the physio, in the gym, on pool deck as coaches, and have that professionalism with you as an athlete, that they're able to tell you at one point in time when you've screwed up or when you're injured or sick. They're like, nope, stay in bed, stay home, or like, nope, like this is how you have to do it, and have kind of like pull that rank or power or whatever you want over you and actually tell you as an athlete. Because I think us as athletes, we can get so ahead of ourselves that we're like, we know what's best, but like really, we're all just trying to figure it out on our own. So friendship and professionalism. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have two more questions. We've got one here from Spurko, from the UK, but is an Aussie, so this one might be special. But what is your
Okay.
favourite thing about playing in Italy?
Um, I just think the passion for water polo is like one of my favorite things. Everyone knows the sport water polo, and the ones who play it are really skilled and high level water polo players. So I think Italians just love their sport, but they extremely love water polo, and so I think that's probably like my favorite thing is yeah, their passion.
How is that different to Aussies? Because Australians, certainly as an Englishman, we know that Australians are very passionate about sports also. So
I just think water polo isn't on the radar of many Aussies as a sport. It's not a huge sport down under. You've got your footies, your cricket, your netball, surf life saving. There's a lot more sports that come to mind when you think of Australian sport. We don't necessarily think about water polo as a sport. And that's not by fault of anyone. That's just kind of how it works in Aussie. And we've got everyone plays sport under the sun. So we've got a massive gene pool to pick from for high performance sports. So we are definitely passionate, and our fans are passionate, and the kids and the people involved in water polo is passionate. But I just think as a whole, as a country in Italy, 9 times out of 10, everyone knows Palo Nuoto. Everyone. So like that's kind of the difference. Yeah.
She has been learning some Italian.
Oh,
It's good. It's good.
there you go.
Okay, last question. We end on this question for all of our guests. But what does life look like for you outside of the swimming pool, however little that time might be? What hobbies do you have? What do you do to relax? What do you enjoy doing when you're not throwing a ball around?
Yeah, so I actually work outside of water polo. I studied a Bachelor of Psych, specialising in disability studies at UCLA, and now I work 2 days a week for Cerebral Palsy Australia. And I'm so fortunate that my workplace is flexible, allows me to work when I'm in Italy via a different time zone over Zoom. I'm really, really lucky in that sense. But so I work in the disability sector in kind of advocacy and engagement and governance of different bits and pieces. And yeah, I couldn't be more thankful for that. Outside of work, I love reading, and I challenged myself to read 22 books in 2022. I'm up to 19, so I've got 4 more to go by the end of the year. And then I'm just like your classic athlete that loves to binge watch Netflix and lie in bed, as well as every other thing under the sun. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that about your work with the disability stuff. That's really admirable. That's great to hear, and all the best with that, and all the best with the World League next week, and obviously for the Italian League and the Euro League. And thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
There are so many amazing lessons to take away from that talk. I really feel so enriched, and I'm really not surprised that Bronte is doing the things that she's doing and reaching the levels that she's reaching. She's a world-class athlete, so try to absorb as many of her words and take away every piece of advice that she gave during our talk. Anyhow, thanks so much for staying with us for this podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to give us a review, a share, a like on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast. And of course, don't forget that you're entitled to 10% off at wearwaterpolo.com using our discount code podcast10. So that's podcast10 for 10% off your next order. But as I said, guys, thanks for sticking around. We've got another awesome guest next week, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.